The devastating landslides in northern India.
It was the hottest May ever recorded.
Into calls. If somebody needs help, they got to figure it out on their own.
We are burning fossil fuels, which is heating up the planet.
Some stories don't have two sides. Some stories are simply true.
All of this with the global warming and that, a lot of it's a hoax. It's a hoax. I mean, it's a money-making industry, okay?
Climate change is a change in the general climate conditions of the Earth. This could be a change in Earth's usual temperature, or it could be a change in the rainfall and the snowfall patterns. Weather can change just in a few hours. But climate takes hundreds or even millions of years to change. Not only was 2016 the warmest year in the record, but 8 out of 12 months in that particular year were the warmest ever.
The Earth's climate has constantly been changing throughout the years due to small variations in the Earth's orbit. But the current warming trend is particularly significant because it is extremely likely to have been caused by human activity and at a pace that has never been seen before.
The United Nations Framework Convention of Climate Change, that is UNFCCC, agrees that human activity is altering the composition of the global atmosphere. More than 97% of the world scientists also agree to the same.
We talked to Mr. Luke Mendes, who is a writer, educator, filmmaker, and an advisor to the Ministry of Environment.
What is climate change? It's that when certain patterns that the Earth has created for billions of years is suddenly changing because of man's intervention. This mass development without care for Mother Nature. Suddenly when you have a rain, like a rain shower in the month of January or December, that's a sign of climate change. When you have the polar caps melting, and when you have this precipitation that happens, that is the evaporation and the rain, that's a cycle of water. That gets disrupted when you take away the tree cover, when you do rampant development. So that is real climate change.
The biggest cause of this issue is the so-called greenhouse effect. Certain gases in the atmosphere block the heat from escaping. Gases like carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and water vapor. On Earth, the human activities are changing the natural greenhouse. Over the last century, burning of fossil fuels has drastically increased the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
While these gases are naturally occurring in low quantities, the concentration of CO2 has been 300 parts per million from the beginning of the human civilization till the 19th century. Today, it is about 400 parts per million, a level which has never been reached before. Delhi earned the distinction of being the most polluted city on earth as air quality had reached epically bad proportions. So much so that the Chief Minister, Arvind Kejriwal, referred to it as a gas chamber. Most of Delhi's pollution is attributed to vehicular traffic. Delhi has 4 times the amount of vehicles Mumbai does.
Mumbai isn't far behind though. The System of Air Quality Weather Forecasting and Research recorded an average air quality index of 271. Anything between 201 to 300 is considered harmful for people with sensitive lungs.
Industrialization leads to another big problem: waste.
Waste management is a huge challenge as well as crisis in our country.
There's absolutely no humanistic fervor to even wonder what happens to that waste.
90 years of accumulated garbage.
According to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, the waste from animal industry and animal agriculture are responsible for 18% of greenhouse gas emissions.
The main culprit in all of this is methane. Methane is 25 to 100 times more destructive than CO2 on a 20-year time frame. Development brings about progress. To live a comfortable life, we all need better infrastructures, more goods, and easier transportation. But at what cost?
Now if you notice, there used to be mangroves over here. Mangroves. What are mangroves? Mangrove is it's an intertidal plant, a tree that creates 50 times more oxygen than a regular tree. Now what the so-called administration, who are totally ignorant, what have they done? They've cut the mangroves to facilitate your buildings. Now what has happened? The sea waves has increased and the mangroves would usually absorb that kind of water. And the waves would not hit the coast. But the government has put these tetrapods and replaced what a mangrove was doing naturally. This is human intervention. Nature is intelligent. Humans are not, because nature has been doing it for millions of years. Humans have just come, and this is the mess that they've made. So the tetrapod is acting like a sea wall. The sea wall is supposed to stop the sea. Those tetrapods are not doing an iota of what a mangrove can do.
So basically, at this point, we're destroying the planet at a much faster rate than we can mend. As a result, our planet is warming at the fastest pace ever recorded.
The planet's average surface temperature has risen by around 2 degrees Fahrenheit since the late 19th century, which is only around 1.1 degrees Celsius. Now this might not seem like much, but the Earth's temperature has risen by only 4 degrees Fahrenheit since the Ice Age.
Scientists have high confidence that the global temperatures will continue to rise. The IPCC, that is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, along with 1,300 scientists, reports that the temperatures will rise up to 10 degrees Fahrenheit in the next century.
This can lead to some pretty big problems, the biggest one of which is the melting of the polar ice.
January 2018 marked record lows in global sea ice extent. The rate of decline in January was 47,700 square kilometers per year, or 3.3% per decade.
This snow sheet reflects sunlight back into the atmosphere, maintaining the temperature at the poles. But as it decreases, less sunlight is reflected back, which in turn makes the waters warmer, which in turn leads to more ice melting. All of this is leading to the rise in the sea levels.
Global sea levels were stable for about 3,000 years until the 20th century. At the current rate, the world's ocean will be at least 60 centimeters higher by the end of the century, according to the research published by the National Academies of Sciences.
Scientists say that even small changes in the sea levels can lead to bigger, more disastrous problems like flooding and erosion. Presently, about 40% of the world's population lives within 100 kilometers to the coast. Now, what this means is, most major cities in the world will be completely gone by the end of this century, including Mumbai.
This warming also causes a lot of disruption in the marine ecosystem.
One of the most visually dramatic effects of climate change can be seen in coral bleaching.
Another big symbol of climate change is the polar bear. With decreasing ice cover, they are fast finding themselves to be extinct. Warming waters are changing the breeding and migrating patterns of species such as seals, sea turtle, whales, and cold water fish.
Moreover, as more CO2 is emitted into the atmosphere, most of it is absorbed by the oceans, which makes the oceans more acidic. This then endangers the aquatic species. Also, as 75% of the Earth is the ocean, it is safe to say that if this is affected, everything gets affected.
It's also estimated that a quarter of land species could go completely extinct if this continues to happen. You see, most plants and animals live and thrive in very specific climatic conditions. Any change in the climate of the area could affect the species as well as the makeup of the entire ecosystem.
Now, humans aren't immune to this either. Global warming is believed to cause intense storms like these.
Tonight, the most powerful hurricane to hit Haiti in more than 50 years is causing chaos.
Understand exactly what's happening here.
It also causes extreme weather events like floods, droughts, wildfires.
Lightning, fires, and floods. In Maryland, a possible tornado.
Now, this not only means that there is more loss of human life, but it also leads to conflicts among communities over resources.
We're already seeing displacement as a result of climate change and disasters now.
Populations are going up. As economies grow and countries develop, they use more and more water, and we're polluting what there is, making it less and less accessible.
So now with this environmental catastrophe, or this whole degradation of the environment, what's going to happen is that you're going to have the rivers polluted, your seas polluted, all your drinking water, there's going to be insecurity of drinking water. Because of the water crisis, you'll have a food crisis. That's when we are going to have lots of wars. You'll have water wars, everyone wanting to protect their water. Tamil Nadu and Kerala fighting over their rivers. People will fight for water, people will fight for food, and it's going to be bad.
So then by now it must be pretty clear that this is a very big problem. So big that it must feel impossible to solve. What do you and me do about calamities like these?
Which is also why a lot of people ignore it. It's very easy to believe that this problem will never affect you in your life. But remember, everything is connected.
So remember, we are one planet, one community, right? In this one planet, one community, if something happens in Africa, we are going to get affected soon. We are all connected. And we are all connected because the atmosphere is one. The water in the atmosphere is one. The water in the ocean is one. The water in your rivers and seas is the same. Same structure, H2O.
So to cut emissions by a substantial number, we need to start living a sustainable life. On a global level, the biggest change would be making it easier to switch to greener, renewable sources of energy like wind, solar, geothermal or hydropower, and also to make these things more efficient.
Putting a carbon tax will not only help fund greener initiatives, but it also helps cut down on pollution activities as it makes them more expensive. Denmark has had a carbon tax since 1992. Emissions per person went down by 15% between 1995 and 2005. All this needs the support of developed countries, but we've seen a lot of friction there.
I am determined to make sure that American leadership drives international action.
The president has tweeted climate change skepticism at least 115 times, including a claim that the concept of global warming was created by and for the Chinese.
It was announced that the Senate was going to debate if climate change was indeed real.
There has been no recorded warming.
Political controversy has continued to call into question scientists' data on human-caused climate change, mostly motivated by the fossil fuel industry.
But in 2015, the world's leaders appeared to rise above such quarrels. On December 12th, at the 21st United Nations Conference on Climate Change in France, 195 countries agreed to what's known as the Paris Agreement.
India played an instrumental role in this agreement, but it has been long argued that India has bigger problems to deal with. How do we expect people with no money for food to switch from coal to solar? Problems like poverty, racial inequality, and politics have taken the center stage. But remember, if there's no humanity, then there is no scope for humanitarian problems.
Environment Minister Jairam Ramesh had earlier said that India cannot and will not take emission targets as it has other problems to tackle first. But over time, India has agreed to quantify its efforts to mitigate climate change. Ramesh said that the emission reductions will be substantially high, but it still won't be bound by international law.
Recently, the Ministry of Environment and Forests added 20 new initiatives to the National Action Plan on Climate Change. One of these is a solar mission, which sets to install 200 gigawatts by 2050. It is one of the most ambitious plans that any country has undertaken so far.
Now, all of this is what nations have been doing. But what can we do?
According to a new study in the journal Environmental Research Letters, the 4 important actions that create the most difference are the most difficult. Having fewer children, avoiding long Atlantic flights, living without a car, and having a vegan diet.
Now that might seem like a bit too much. So here are some things that we can do to contribute towards a better tomorrow.
The most important one is to get involved.
Everyone should be invested in their own lives and how to preserve their own lives. So why aren't you saving yourself? Someone's choking the rivers. Why aren't you saving yourself? Someone's cutting RA, the trees in RA. Why aren't you saving yourself? They're cutting the mangroves that give you oxygen. Why aren't you saving yourself and fighting with them and asking them, why are you preventing us from having a normal life? Question everything. Participate in everything. That's what a real democracy is when you participate in the process.
You should also start being more energy efficient. Reduce your consumption or slowly switch to a new renewable source of energy like solar. Reduce your liability on cars. Try and use public transport or carpooling. Use only recyclable products and try eating less meat.
And last but not the least, be informed. Read, learn, understand and educate someone else. Look, the blatant truth is at this rate, it's really difficult to reverse the damages that we've done. But we're the last generation that gets any chance to make a real difference.
Till now, We've been part of the cause.
Let's be part of the solution.
Let's make a difference.
So guys, we hope that you've enjoyed this film in a very special way. We'd like to thank Mr. Luke Mendes, who's been a wonderful part of this project. He's helped us in every way possible. We'd also like to thank Ms. Rani D'Souza and Father Joe Braganza, as well as Don Bosco College. We'd also like to thank Nana for making this set possible, and Mary Lou Villa. So guys, you need to understand that making a project... Guys.